This month has been really interesting. We've seen new wells being drilled, increased interest from big players, stimulated hydrogen deals being made, and new companies moving into natural hydrogen exploration. Let's get started on this first edition of NatH2Investing Insights, where I will walk you through the latest news from the industry, company by company. I'm Morten Stahl, specialized investor and founder of Natural Hydrogen Ventures, a company specialized in investing in natural hydrogen companies, the private ones. What we're doing today, and with NatH2Investing in general, is focusing on the public traded companies, because public traded companies offers a lot of information that we can discuss freely because they're public and offer a way for any investor to follow the industry in real time. We have condensed this real-time tracking of natural hydrogen into our NatH2 index, which you can find on our website, nath2investing.com. Here you can also subscribe to our newsletter and get our natural hydrogen investor report for free. The report covers the 10 companies included in the index and a few private companies. Today, as a special guest, I'm joined by Anthony, with whom I normally do our podcast. He's here today to make sure I get it right and show my way around in Riverside we used to record this. In the future, hopefully I can do this on my own, but today Anthony will help me out. Say hi, Anthony.
Hi, I'm actually excited. I'm excited to see what the series can bring, how people react to it. And actually, I think it's a next stage in what we're doing. So I'm very excited, and let's see what Morten is cooking today with his debut episode.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Then let's get to it. How we'll do this, then we'll start with the companies announcing what I deem to be the biggest news in the latest month. And then we'll work our way through the companies included in our NatH2 index, and then ending with news from the companies currently outside the index. Please let me know in the comments if you think I'm missing an important point or if you have any additional information to share. I am crunching a lot of information in a short time to do this, and I will make mistakes and misunderstand things sometimes. And I apologize for this in advance. And finally, remember, this is not investment advice. If you're interested in investing into natural hydrogen companies, which I, as an investor, heavily invested in the space, can certainly understand, then remember to do your own research. With this out of the way, let's go to the first company. First company is Gold Hydrogen. And for the ones following on our podcast, I'll show you a way around on our website where we have all the company data accumulated. We have Gold Hydrogen here. Gold Hydrogen is an Australian company listed on the ASX exchange in Australia, and it's focusing on South Australian acreage. It is the biggest by market cap natural hydrogen company, currently with a market cap of $52 million. So the reason we're starting out with Gold Hydrogen is obviously because they're drilling, and drilling purposely natural hydrogen wells is important both for the company and for the wider industry. Starting from beginning of November, they've obviously been proud to communicate with the market that they have commenced drilling. Drilling first Ramsay Well 3 and Ramsay Well 4 in the Yorke Peninsula in South Australia. They are really good at reminding us that what they're doing now is spending the strategic investment money they got from the 3 big investors in their latest round. That's Toyota Motors, and it's Ineos, and it's Mitsubishi Gas. 3 Japanese companies who obviously have an interest in both natural hydrogen and helium. And both natural hydrogen and helium is something that these latest drilling, according to the press releases, have kind of confirmed that the substances exist in a wider area, that it isn't just near Ramsay 1 and 2, but in a broader area, bringing the hopes that this is a much bigger play working here. In the announcement, they also confirmed a 97% hydrogen purity in Ramsay 3, and just yesterday, they confirmed hydrogen and helium in Ramsay 4 as well. Obviously, we've seen such good numbers before, and what we're really waiting for as investors and as an industry is how much of this, if any, can be commercial. are there enough hydrogen for it to be commercial? Or maybe helium. Helium would require a lot less quantities to be commercial because it's much, much higher value, especially the helium 4 or 3. I'm kind of forgetting which one is the most valuable, but you get the point, much more valuable than natural hydrogen. This is something they will need to do extensive testing. And according to the releases in end of Q1 next year, they will having a test rig in, and building seems to be quite extensive a setup to test the production potential of these new wells. So it'll be really, really interesting to follow how this progress start of the new year. So moving on to the next company, which will be Max Power. Max Power is second today because they, like Gold Hydrogen, have drilled wells too. Max Power is listed on the CSE exchange in Canada and works exclusively in Saskatchewan, the Canadian province. So a pure play Canada company. Currently, market cap is $42 million US. So one of the bigger pure play natural hydrogen companies. Max Power, as I said, has been drilling the first Canadian natural hydrogen well in their Lawson area in Saskatchewan. They confirmed that they discovered hydrogen in the well. They haven't shared the same level of data as Gold Hydrogen has, so we don't know percentages. And just as Gold Hydrogen, Max Power is planning to test the well to see how maybe it flows and get more data out of it. So really interesting times. Also interesting is that kind of a part of the releases, it doesn't say in the headlines, but you'll see that they are progressing with their fundraising. And fundraising is really important. You know, you go broke if you run out of money. And Max Power has shown lately that they're good at raising funds. They are communicating in this month that the deal with the Asian investor, now revealed to be a Vietnamese investor, investing 5 million Canadian dollars, that deal is progressing. They've also announced that they raised in the period 1.7 million Canadian dollars from people exercising their warrants. So really good to see Max Power on track, raising funds, drilling wells, and wanting to drill more and testing the one that drilled already. Again, really interesting to follow this going forward. Next company will be HyTerra. Just like the two before mentioned companies, HyTerra have drilled wells. HyTerra is an Australian company listed on the ASX exchange in Australia, but actually focus exclusively on US, exclusively on Kansas, and has been one of the first companies, actually the first company to list and do natural hydrogen exploration. This period, HyTerra hasn't released that much. Seems they're still working through the data they got from drilling their wells, but they did announce an interesting thing that they have teamed up with GeoKiln. GeoKiln is a private company that offers to produce or plan to produce stimulated hydrogen. And if you're new to this space, natural hydrogen, when we discuss natural hydrogen, we mean hydrogen that is accumulating in the subsurface naturally that you can then hope to drill for and extract. And stimulated hydrogen is where you find the right rocks that you kind of get them to produce hydrogen, stimulated. And this type of hydrogen is something that GeoKiln want to do, and they're teaming up with HyTerra to find out if it could be possible to do so in the HyTerra acreage. And if so, it seems, reading their releases, that GeoKiln will be financing that pilot project to take it further. So definitely interesting, and also interesting to see that just a few days ago they announced that they appointed a CEO, Riley Kemp, moving from Fortescue, the big investor in HyTerra, into HyTerra to move forward. It says he has a mandate to develop offtake opportunities. Always really exciting. You know, we've got to find out who we're going to sell the hydrogen to. and guiding project execution and strengthening the HyTerra visibility across global energy and capital markets. Yeah, and I was quoting directly from the release. So interesting to follow both his new work with HyTerra and the collaboration with GeoKiln. Next company will be, before we take next company, Anthony, you raised your hand.
Yes, actually, I've been wondering about when it comes to gold, hydrogen, and max power, the next steps, because I know they have their flow testing, the commercialization testing. Gold hydrogen is called it next year around the end of Q1. Do we have any idea what this is going to look like? And for each company, what is this going to look like? And what should we expect from this if we have this data?
Well, I think reading their communication, it seems they will do some kind of flow testing how much gas can they get to the surface and what will be the quantities. What we've seen around the world is that quite a few places you can find good percentage of hydrogen, but of course that doesn't matter if it's only a kilo of hydrogen. You got to find and get the wells to flow bigger quantities. So that is a test they will probably run for quite some time, because one thing is seeing how much hydrogen, but also over how long a period. So it could be a start of a long testing period. It's, you will never know in exploration, but statistically, gold hydrogen having drilled the third and fourth well with the data from 1 and 2, maybe they are closer to finding what they're looking for in terms of helium and hydrogen and flow rates. Max power, of course, every time you drill a well, you could strike it big and find something, but statistically, they'll probably need to drill a few more wells to really pin down the right area. But that's nothing, they haven't communicated something on this, so it's just me guessing.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to the next company. Next company is QIMC. QIMC is a company that is really good at communicating with the market. There's a lot of news coming out, and I don't think we will ever do an inside edition without having news from QIMC. With quite a lot of news out, I'll condense the essence of what they've been putting out. But first, QIMC is a Canadian CSE listed company currently with a market cap of $43 million US. QIMC works primarily in Canada, but also have assets in Minnesota in the US. In Canada, they've been working a lot in Quebec, and currently a lot of their communication is regarding the Nova Scotia acreage. And this is also the case in this period. They have been communicating that they have increased their drilling activities in Nova Scotia to 5,000 meters. And I think 5,000 meters, they are probably discussing or using wording from the mining industry when you add together all the core drillings or soil sampling maybe that you want to do, and then that adds up to 5,000 meters. I think since it's not totally clear in the press releases, some people get confused thinking they are to drill a hydrogen well that's 5,000 meters deep, which I'm 99% sure is not really the case. But correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But they're really doing a lot of sampling in this area to kind of test out their models and idea of where hydrogen exists. They're also advancing projects on how to find an off-taker for the hydrogen, which is something that I always think is a really good idea. You gotta know someone you can sell the hydrogen to. They're pursuing, it seems, turning the hydrogen into electricity then to use for data centers and AI, which I'm a bit surprised about. I think hydrogen probably has the best value as the molecule, but I'm not familiar with the local electricity prices, and I'm willing to be positively surprised. Anything is really good that they're just looking into who's going to buy the hydrogen, because that's important. Finally, they have announced, according to them, that both Koloma And if you're new to this industry, Koloma is the biggest private company operating in this industry. Koloma has been taking acreage in Nova Scotia as well as Rio Tinto, the really big mining companies. This is not confirmed by either of these companies, and maybe Rio is just doing what they do as a mining company. But we do know that Rio Tinto have interest in natural hydrogen as they've invested in Snowfox discovery out of the UK. So remains to be seen, but no matter what QIMC and the new potential entrants are doing in this area will be really interesting to follow. And Anthony, you raised your hand again.
Yes, I'm going to be a bit of a bother here because I'm curious what you might feel about the Koloma and Rio Tinto. How do we call this? Can we call it news? Can we call it rumor? We don't know yet, but I would like to know what you think and how this could affect the performance of QIMC, because if it is confirmed and we can see that Koloma and Rio Tinto are situated around, as QIMC is saying, could this be a catalyst for the growth of QIMC as a long-term stock pick?
Well, I think that it's not confirmed by Koloma, but Koloma has never confirmed much of where they're operating. So assuming, I see no reason that QIMC, and they're probably not allowed to just, throw out rumors. So maybe they have good evidence that this has actually happened. And of course, that should be seen as a validation of the area that QIMC is working in. I am not familiar with the local geography. I don't know if there's a really big difference between where they're operating and the new guys are taking acreage. But assuming it's kind of the same, I will say it's validating. But we have to remember that this is still such a new industry. There is no proof yet that Koloma or Rio Tinto is right about their thinking on natural hydrogen. But definitely I'll see it as a plus. Whether or not that tells you anything about where QIMC is going as an investment, I can't comment on. I simply don't know.
Okay.
Moving on to the next company, which is Getech. Getech is kind of an interesting one. Getech is listed in the AIM exchange in London, and it's currently has a market cap of $4 million. Of course, it's listed in pounds in the UK, but everything we talk about today is in dollars. So 4 million, obviously, less expensive or less market cap heavy company than the previous one we looked at. But it's interesting because it's what you would call a picks and shovel play. This is a company that provides the stuff, the data, the software that you need as an explorer in energy, whether it's oil and gas, mining, including lithium mining, very popular these days, obviously, geothermal, and natural hydrogen as well. What they announced in this period is that they have partnered up with a private company called REV, which offers services that too would help, in this case, specifically natural hydrogen companies, to better understand the areas they're working in, better modeling, if or not they should proceed in exploration. So it will be really interesting to see how, and if they plan to bundle their services together and how they will collaborate. Could be really interesting and definitely something that would be interesting to follow going forward. As a side note, it's mentioned in the press release that the deal was signed at HNET in Paris, the biggest natural hydrogen conference that happened just, I think 6 weeks ago, maybe, where we were co-hosting the investor day, the investor-focused part of the conference. Really good conference that we look forward to participating in again next year. Moving on to the next company, REV Exploration. REV Exploration is one of the Canadian companies that started out as a mining company and have moved into natural hydrogen. It's still a mining company with quite a lot of gold mining assets, and it seems to be still taking licenses for gold. And obviously, with a very high gold price lately, REV Exploration offers investors a dual exposure to both natural hydrogen as well as a very popular commodity right now. It's listed on the TSXV exchange. It's a bigger exchange than some of the other companies. That might mean, as an investor sitting around the world, you could probably easier trade this stock than others. But at least that's how it is from Denmark. Currently, REV have a market cap of $10.8 million. So what they announced in this period is that they acquired some more licenses that seems to cover both the potential for gold and natural hydrogen in the Ontario and Quebec provinces. So this is interesting to see them expanding, because prior to this, they were focused only from a natural hydrogen point of view on Alberta, and then also having some shares in Max Power. Works in Saskatchewan, because they gave some license in Saskatchewan to Max Power and now hold shares in Max Power instead. So again, interesting to follow, and especially I'm interested to follow, will they do more natural hydrogen or more gold, or continue to do both in tandem? Anthony, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, REV Exploration. Sorry, my mic was off. Now I'm the one failing with the technology. So REV Exploration had really slowed down, hadn't they? And when it comes to if you look at the headlines there, you can see that they hadn't released any natural hydrogen related headlines since August. They had released some other metals related headlines since then, but nothing about natural hydrogen. So what do you think has led them to maybe come back to natural hydrogen in a way? I know they never left, but what has led them to maybe return to their focus in natural hydrogen?
Well, I think as a company, you have different projects running, and they just developed in different timelines. What I was trying right now is getting to the exchange website. You would always see a link on NatH2Investing on the company profile, so you can go and see. Maybe when you said slow down, I wondered if you thought about the share price or something. But currently, that's going a bit slow, so we'll just skip that. So I don't think we have information to read anything particular into it. But we know that Canadian provinces works in different speeds, So maybe just take longer to get going in Alberta, where they have the Aden Dome natural project, as you can see on screen. So again, just you just gotta wait, see what's coming out of it.
Here's a follow-up to my follow-up, because I wanted to ask you something. How do you feel, because this is on the record, I guess, how do you feel if, when we release these news, these insights, NatH2Investing Insights, as we're calling the series, when people, they come in and they see it and their company is mentioned, if they have an opinion, would it be nice for them to leave it there in the comments below and say, for example, well, let me explain what is going on in our company, and explain to us what is happening and why these things are happening? Would that be a good thing?
Yeah, that would be perfect. We want to do this for everyone to engage. So as I said in the beginning, there would be things that maybe I misunderstood, or maybe I didn't take the time to understand something, a detail that seems to be very important. So please, whether or not you're working for a company or the company CEO, or just another one following the industry, pitch in. Let's share information. That would be great.
Yeah, perfect. Okay,
But
that's a
on
good
that
idea.
note, I think, Anthony, it'll also be, before we move on to the next company, I'll show everyone, including the companies, that the difference between the amount of information we have on each company, it's due to how much the companies are engaging with NatH2Investing. So if you want to have a bigger profile with more information on NatH2Investing, please reach out and we'll get it updated. All right, moving on to the next company. Primary hydrogen. Primary hydrogen is Canadian companies, previously a mining company, now a natural hydrogen company, with quite an extensive portfolio of Canadian projects all over Canada, basically, as well as one in US, in Colorado, as I remember. They haven't announced that much lately, but they seem to be progressing their early stage exploration campaigns. which seems to include, which is kind of common among the Canadian companies, to include some soil sampling. I'm not quite sure how, I think it's still early to say how much information that it will give any company exploring for natural hydrogen, but it's obviously better than not knowing anything. Where it gets a bit tricky, and you'll see in the releases, is that in one area they announce soil sampling results of hydrogen up to 180 ppm. And in another area, it's 665 ppm. And it's difficult to compare, actually, because you could say that 665 is much better than 180, but it depends on the background hydrogen ppms. How does it compare to other areas? So it's a bit difficult to compare, but great to see that they're progressing, and looking forward to see more news from this company. It has slowed down a bit. Next company will be, just checking my notes here, we'll be moving outside the index, meaning that we will be companies down here. And this one is QMET, previously known as, or maybe still, Q precious battery and battery metals, but QMET for short. QMET is a company that is very much affiliated with QIMC. QIMC has, as I remember, two companies following them in the way that QIMC leads the way in I think deciding the exploration plans and kind of being the operator. And so they have announced some of the same information that QIMC has this period, but to point to something of interest really is that they raised funds in this quarter, or this month. And again, fundraising is something that we track as investors in natural hydrogen ventures as well, very close to find out how is the industry developed overall, but also how does investors look to this? What do they require to take the risk of investing into natural hydrogen? And QMET have raised 465,000 Canadian dollars in a very straight up average fundraising, offering some shares as well as some warrants on top. Shares being offered at 0.09 per unit, and I think right now it trades at 0.07. So actually right now, the investors is underwater a bit. Not good for them, obviously, but good that the company didn't have to offer too low an offer price compared to the traded price. Yeah, and then again, this is just interesting to see, working in tandem with QIMC. Interesting to follow how that develops in this, especially Nova Scotia area, with the new interest from the bigger players. So next company is, again, one of these affiliates of QIMC. It's Diagnamed. Remember, that's a company coming out of doing all kinds of things, technology development, but now really focused on natural hydrogen. They are again communicating a lot of the stuff we've heard from QAMC about their area, and probably because seeing that extra interest in Nova Scotia, they have moved into the Nova Scotia area, acquiring some new claims. But before this, I forgot to mention, Diagnamed is traded on CSE in Canada and has a market cap of $4.7 million US dollars. This is interesting. Every time someone acquires new land or new licenses, I take an interest because it kind of helps you put a value on licenses in a certain area. And Diagnamed has acquired 2,104 claims for $10,000 in cash, and what is at the current rate 600,000 Canadian dollars in shares. It would be great, just if anyone knows and can put in the comment, what is claims? I haven't obviously spent enough time figuring out, but could we get this, please, Canadian companies, could we get it in square kilometers or acres or hectares, so we know how big an area you actually have licensed up? Claims doesn't tell a poor investor like me how much you actually have. So anyway, again, like with the previous companies, interesting to follow this development in Nova Scotia. Next company to release news in this period is Element 1. Element 1 is, as you no doubt have found out by now, there's a lot of Canadian companies in this industry, and Element 1 is one of them, listed on the CSE with a current market cap of $3.4 million US. Element 1 is interesting because they moved from mining to natural hydrogen company with the aim to be both developing natural hydrogen in the natural form, but also, it seems, stimulated hydrogen, having acquired the rights to a technology, early stage technology, as any in this industry is, to stimulate hydrogen from the right rocks. And in that view, then it's interesting to see that their December release that they have identified what you call ultramafic rocks in their British Columbia project, which could potentially be something that will be worth stimulating at some point. So really interesting, and especially from a point of view that if you want exposure to the potential of stimulated hydrogen, there is now Element 1 hydrogen giving you that exposure. So interesting to follow. Moving on to the next company. Next company is Helix. And Helix is an AIM listed, meaning London AIM listed company, which differs from the other in many ways, as it has a market cap of $67 million US, meaning that is more valuable than even gold hydrogen. But that's because Helix is, first of all, a helium explorer, and a quite advanced one, it seems, having read announcement that they're already building the helium plant to monetize and produce first, of course, helium from their Montana areas in the US. But what they released in this period was a comment on them re-entering a well they drilled that seemed to have some good potential for natural hydrogen. And reading that announcement, it seems like they were really announcing themselves to be also a natural hydrogen company, which will be really interesting to see. You know, we don't know much more, but obviously looking at an exploration company that actually makes money from helium and then maybe could decide to spend some of that on exploring for natural hydrogen would be a really interesting case. So it isn't the case right now, but it could be a company that actually makes money and also explore for natural hydrogen. And they are really rare right now. Moving on to the next company. And we're kind of getting through. This is the small announcement now. So it should be, we don't have that many companies left. Next company is Red Metal Resources. Red Metal Resources is, again, a Canadian company listed on the CSE. It has the lowest market cap of the company we're talking about today at just a bit more than $1 million US. What's interesting is that what they are doing, they are both natural hydrogen and a mining company still, and their natural hydrogen acreage is in the Quebec, Ontario area, and there's a map here showing, if you can see, it's actually in the middle of the lake between the two provinces. So, and as I think I commented the first time I saw this, that this might be the first offshore exploration for natural hydrogen. Obviously, coming with some extra or other ways of having to do this. You know, I imagine they have to research with drones, as you can't soil sampling in the same way they could do onshore if that's what they plan to do. So really interesting to follow how this progresses and whether it's a plus or a negative that you have offshore hydrogen licenses. So next company is a newcomer to the industry, if you have to be strictly correct, because it's Prominence. And following the industry, you might have heard about them before, but it's actually only yesterday that the final transaction happened, bringing the 2 projects of natural hydrogen into Prominence, making it a company with now assets in both hydrocarbons. They have a Gulf of America project, and they have also in Australia, they have some shares in potential carbon sequestration project, I think. But now, obviously, main focus seems to be natural hydrogen. And interestingly enough, I try to calculate, even with all the new shares being issued to bring in these new assets, it will look very cheap on the metric of the market cap compared with how much license they have, or in Australia, companies often both have something they got granted and then applied. But both metrics, applied for and actual granted license, looks really cheap. And this metric is a crude one really, and there's, acreage aren't born equal, but still, it's one of the metrics we can actually use. And in this case, it looks to be 10 times cheaper than gold hydrogen, which is obviously a different company with, much more advanced, having drilled wells, but on a price per granted and applied acreage, 10 times cheaper. So I'm interested to see how the market reacts to this when they start trading with all the new shares being issued. Moving to the next company, which is Whitebark. Whitebark is an Australian company as well, and walking through this, you really get to feel how many companies are Canadian and Australian. That's really the bulk of the companies working this industry. We have Whitebark somewhere. There's no specific order to the companies here on the website, so there it was. Whitebark is an ASX-listed company with a current market cap of just below $4 million US dollars. It has a project in the middle of Australia, roughly, the Officer Basin, that is hoped to have both potential for hydrogen, helium, and methane. So for investors, this offers the opportunity to, you could say, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. When they are drilling, eventually, if they get that far drilling in this prospect, they might, in some layers, find hydrogen, helium, others maybe methane, maybe nothing, maybe both. So that makes it an interesting company. What they've done in this period, they have progressed their exploration plans, and for early stage exploration, that often means soil sampling. And so have they done soil sampling and found both hydrogen and helium and methane as what seems to be a bit low ppms, but again, doesn't matter. It has to be looked at in comparison with the background ppm. So again, it's a bit difficult to say how much it tells us, but it does tell us that they are progressing according to the work program, the plan they have for the area. So it'll be interesting to follow Whitebark moving forward. Next and final company is FDE. And I call it FDE because the real name is in French. Obviously, it's a French company, and I struggle with pronouncing things in French. I'm sorry about that. Française de l'Energie, but we'll go with FDE. FDE is a total different company, as it only has natural hydrogen as a small part of its overall focus. And that is reflected in the fact that the market cap is more than $200 million US. So 3 times as much as Helix and 4 times as much as Gold Hydrogen, because it's actually a profitable company making money on methane from coalbed methane extraction and solar, wind plants, green hydrogen assets in Norway. It just recently acquired. So a bigger energy company with a wider portfolio. They just announced that they will be drilling, and interestingly enough, funded with seems to be regional and European Union funding. We don't see that much funding coming into the natural hydrogen industry this way. But with this funding, they're planning to drill a 3,000 meters deep well in northern France in Lorraine to test indications that there might be a lot of hydrogen in this area. They will be targeting this hydrogen dissolved in water. And right now in the industry, I would say that some people doubt the commerciality of hydrogen dissolved in water, but that's not to say that it won't work at some point. And if the company finds out how to do this, or maybe finds out that there's also gaseous hydrogen in the area, I don't know. And I'll try to stick to what's actually communicated here. No matter, it's really interesting to follow this and interesting to see the data coming out of the well being drilled in this area, as well as they mentioned in the release, following their application for the rights to the hydrogen in this area. They could end up, and likely will, knowing others have in France gotten a natural hydrogen license, get a license that covers 2,200 square kilometers in the area. So definitely interesting to see what's going on in this area. It's the first European well. It's the first of many, really. So go FDE. We look forward to follow this. So that said, that's actually all for today. I have to quickly look at my notes, so I'm sure I say the right stuff going out of this first edition of NatH2Investing Insights. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you do, please remember to like and subscribe. And as I said earlier, please let me know in the comments if you think I missed something or have some additional information that you want to share. I plan to be back with more insights early February next year. Hope to see you then, and happy holidays. Bye.